I've computed that someplace on the back of one of these papers, what year I started. I went to Reading Township #1 in Sioux County. Okay, so way over in the western border. Sioux County is like Sioux Center, Orange City, that ringing any bells?
When you said VanderHamm or VanderHamm. VanderHamm, I thought, that's
Yeah.
Dutch territory.
Kind of Dutchy, yeah. Yeah, but my dad would say, he would, there was a lot of feelings about being a Hollander in my family, and they weren't kind. Well, my dad prided himself on being German.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Even with that name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was your mother Dutch?
No.
Okay.
No,
so you weren't Dutch at all?
No, my mother was Scotch-Irish. She was a Wells.
Okay.
Yeah. So, well, okay. I was born in 34, and then I went to, in the spring of 39, before I was 5, I went to what they called a pre-first grade. And they didn't have one of those available at my school, so I went to a school 2 miles away from my school. But my dad took me there, and I don't remember if I went every day or not, but it was a 6-week thing. So then when school started in the fall, I was supposed to be a first grader. And as the school year opened up, then it turned out that there was a student who was a second grader who was having some difficulties learning, and so he and I paired up, and I helped him with some of his learning, and I became a second grader, and so that's the way that progressed. And so then when I'm computing, how this all worked out, then I went there for from 1940. Then I was in second grade, and I finished 8th grade then in at my own school, Reading Township #8.
Oh, so you spent from like pre-first grade until 8th grade.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Started high school at Ireton, Iowa, and rode school bus.
Okay.
So yeah, but there was no consolidation in the time that I was going to school.
Oh, so you never experienced consolidation? You went to the same school all 8 years.
Yeah, all those 8
Was
years.
that a big transition to go from your country school to your high school to the big school in town?
Well, it was kind of, and I would have to say that the town kids perceived us as the farm kids. That's all right. We thought of them as the town kids, So it was that kind of, and it took a while. There were, it was a small school. We started out with 23 in my high school class as freshmen.
In the class, okay.
And there were 14 left that graduated. So
Did they stop to farm or get married? Or?
Farm guys.
Mostly farm guys.
Couple gals got married. So yeah, that's just the way it went. There was not the impetus, the pressure, the encouragement for especially the girls to go on to school.
The importance.
Yeah, that just the Dutch families didn't perceive that as an important thing, and if their daughter could get a job taking care of somebody while she was having a new baby, well, that was okay. It was like pre-training for being married and having your own family. So they didn't see the essence of caring about whether their girls went on and graduated high school or not. So,
Well, let's go back to your pre-first grade classroom, your 6 weeks,
yeah,
either an extended kindergarten roundup or a
yeah.
do you remember anything about that other than that your dad took you?
No. Mm-mm. I don't remember what we did or anything like that, except when I transitioned then to my own school in my own area. I knew how to read, and the young fellow who was in second grade did not. And so I remember that, that I could read, and we did our work together and our studying together. But it was, as all it had to be with teachers in those schools, they had to have their work laid out and planned so that you, the student, were only occupied with the teacher for a limited period of time while she went on to the other class levels that she was dealing with. So, I don't remember a whole lot about what we studied or anything like that. I remember more about, well, for one thing, one year we had a young teacher, and it may have been her first year out, I don't know that. But we also had, after the crops were in, then some of the older boys from the neighborhood came to school. And they were mean and ornery. I mean, they were not kind to her. And I can remember lots of days that she'd be crying. She just couldn't deal with that. I remember that one of the things of course, every teacher had to teach everything, and she had to teach music. And so for music, we had what they called rhythm sticks, and they were nothing but just a stick. I mean, they were decorated and all that. I'm sure that the school paid nicely for them, but we had rhythm sticks, and those boys just, when she passed them out, then they just and broke them in two. They just had no respect for her at all. Finally, the thing that I remember how that year ended was that her boyfriend came with her. Now, she lived at Haywarden, which would have been like about 10 miles away or more maybe. But he came and he sat in the classroom while she taught until the school year was over. Or, I shouldn't say that, or when it got to, the boys had to be out because it was time to do field work. And then when they weren't coming to school anymore, then, she didn't need him to help with classroom discipline. But I've always felt sorry for her in that experience. And boy, it stuck with me, I'll tell you. Probably one of the reasons that I became so, frigid's a good word, but demanding and had high expectations for kids in my classroom, because you were going to behave or there was going to be trouble, And her trouble was she brought her boyfriend with, yeah. So.
How many different teachers did you have? Do you have any idea?
I think 4. Okay. The last teacher that we had lived about maybe 6 miles from the school, and she lived with her parents, and they were in business in a little town called Craig. They ran the locker there. How every farm community had its locker for people that butchered and all of that. And so she was the longest of the teachers that I had, and probably was there maybe 4 or at least 3 of my last years. And she was she was very encouraging and wanted the students to have a good experience, and just was. I don't remember a whole lot about our studying. I do remember that one of the questions in the promo that you shared with me was about homework. And I don't remember ever having homework. When I wanted to do something at home like that, then I wrote letters to family that lived away. And I suppose that was somewhat, my mother had been a school teacher, and I suppose that was one of her ways of keeping me busy and out of her hair. But anyway, so I never really had homework. But when it got to be 8th grade, and we were preparing for 8th grade exams, the state 8th grade exams were, we were told, were very rigid and demanding. And I thought they were. Now, whether they, how tough they really were, that I don't know.
Have you seen any since?
Pardon me?
Have you seen any of those exams since you took yours? They were horrible. They were very demanding.
So, we got, and when we came in for 8th grade, we were given little study books in history and math and science, and they had these study books that we did in addition to our regular curriculum. And so that way, that would be the only studying that I ever did outside of school. And we got to take those study books home, and we were told it was preparation for the exam, for the 8th grade tests. And so I do remember studying those at home and going over them, but otherwise, as far as homework, I don't remember that per se.
Do you remember actually taking the 8th grade exam?
Yeah.
Did you go into town?
No.
Or you did it right at your school?
Right at the school. And the other kids were just browbeaten that they must not make any noise, and we had to have it perfectly quiet, and how were we going to be good? We wanted our school to look really good on those exams, and we wouldn't if they weren't cooperative, So that part I do remember the teachers, chiding them about them. But I do remember Superintendent Ty was his name, and he came and he brought the tests, and it seems to me like we took 2 days taking them. Would that be?
Yeah, I've heard other people say that too.
Yeah. And then the teacher gathered them up, and in the morning she passed them out again, and then we continued. So.
What sorts of things were on the test? What did you have to prepare for?
Well, I remember the history things, and the history things focused a lot on from the time of the discovery of the United States. I don't remember doing much with European history or, the early kinds of history. It was like what the United States was, and then that transitioned into, there was a big civics section, and that was governmental rules and regs, and what do you know about the 3 branches of the government and all of that. So I do remember that, and of course I suppose I dreaded the science the worst, Laura, because I was such a terrible science student. Oh,
Really?
and I didn't like it then, and I didn't like it when I was teaching it, and when I took it in college, that was just strike terror in your heart time, But that I do remember that, there were all these categories, and each category had its little book that you could study.
Were those provided for you, or did you have to purchase those?
No, they were provided.
Okay.
I don't remember ever having to buy any books. One of the questions that it suggested that I might think about is what I had for school supplies, and I know that we bought, Dad bought for us a tablet, and it was a big red front
Big chief,
tablet.
with the
Yeah.
big chief
Yeah.
silhouette.
and pencils, and then a box of crayons. And it was made very clear to me that those crayons were going to last me all year, and I better not break any of them. No, that was a big thing. Colors must have cost a lot. I don't know that. I don't remember that. But I do remember, now you've got a tablet, and you might need another one, and that's okay. We can always get another tablet if you need another, and the pencils will be all right. But these colors now, they're not. These are for the year. Isn't that interesting?
Isn't
The
that?
funny little stuff you remember,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you remember if the teacher supplied any art supplies then for an art class? Did you make anything out of construction paper and
We
jack-o'-lanterns?
had construction paper, and we had scissors, and the scissors were all the stub,
No sharp points.
no sharp points, stubby scissors, and something else now. You're jogging me my
Good,
memory.
good.
Do you remember? No, you wouldn't remember. That in order to make multiple copies of something, the teacher had a hectograph, and it was a jellied plate in almost like a cake pan, okay? And I don't remember how we got the fluid into that jellied plate. I think we just poured it over the top, and then whatever you wanted to make a copy of, you put on that hectograph thing, and you pressed it down and pressed it down, all down, really, really well. Then you took your copy off, then you could lay another copy down and press it, a clean sheet, press it down, press it down, press it down, lift it off, and you'd have a copy. And you could, now, because I was always very good, I mean, I was well behaved. God, I didn't have nerve enough to misbehave. But, so sometimes I got to run the hectograph machine. When the teacher wanted copies, then she'd say, Doris, will you take this and take this one and make me 3 more, or, however many she needed. But I hadn't thought about that hectograph thing for a long time. But that was one of the special paper then that the teacher would have had to provide.
Okay.
That you could, she'd say, now here are the sheets, and I'm sure she counted them out because everything was very, supplies were not, The other thing that our school didn't have a lot of was library books. There were shelves off in the corner of one of the room, and there were like 3, I think, might have been 4, but I think only 3 shelves, and hardly any books there. And of course, once you've read them, then where are you going? Well, you read them again, There wasn't any, I don't remember any kind of access to any library outside of the school. And, but I do remember the books that I read the most probably was during my 7th and 8th grade. We had lots of Zane Grey books.
Oh.
Now, we must have had a dad in our school district who read Zane Grey and probably gave them to the school. Because, I can't imagine that the school would have ordered so many copies of, but I think I read Zane Grey for a long, long time.
Do you still read Zane Grey?
I do. I like Zane Grey, I do. The other book that I read a lot of, and I had, and Mom let me take to school, I had the Elsie Dinsmore series. And that was a story about a young girl and, her experiences. But getting to take it to school was a privilege, and boy, nothing better happened to that book while it's away from home. Because books were, we didn't have a lot of them at our house either.
Did you have encyclopedias at school?
I think there were, Jean. Now that you ask that question, it seems to me, yeah, probably there were. Because that was the only way we had to look anything up. You know, you looked it up in the encyclopedia. So, I don't remember doing a lot of that, but now that you ask that question, I think we had encyclopedias.
So maybe you read those just to have something to read too.
Yeah, you bet. Oh. Well, and I can remember that maybe it was just, you've got to keep some of the kids busy, and so we would write reports. And I'll bet we used the encyclopedias to do that. You know, you could pick a report about some kind of animal maybe, and then look it up and write. See, now I hadn't thought about doing that for a long time. So I thought more about all the fun things that we did. Oh, Laura, my school was, from what I talked with others who went to rural school, my school was pretty progressive or more modern. Let me say that. It was built more modern. And on our little acreage, you know, corners, in the corner, the school was there, and it was cement and slabs up to the walkway into the school and so on. And we had a cemented basement in our school, so that the school was what do I want to say? It was there, and there was a furnace. Okay, there was a furnace downstairs. The other thing there was downstairs in the basement was 2 big storage tanks that held treated water, because it stunk terrible. But it was the holding barrels, big. I mean, I'm talking huge now, from the 2 bathrooms. We had indoor bathroom, boys' bathroom and girls' bathroom inside. Now there weren't sinks there in the bathroom for washing your hands or anything that I remember, but there were stools. And then downstairs, that just went into this holding tank down there, and it was the responsibility of whoever was, what were they called?
Were they directors?
The director, the farmer who was the director at the time, was responsible for emptying that when it X full, and seeing to it that it was maintained with some kind of chemical, and that chemical just smelled to high heaven. I mean, it smelled worse than anything else, but that's okay. But the basement then was cemented, and in the winter we were allowed to roller skate.
Oh.
We could bring roller skates to school, and we could roller skate down the basement during the noon hour. Now, there wasn't time at recess to get your roller skates on and skate and get them off for the little bit of time that the teacher allowed in her schedule. But the noon hour we could. We could put on our roller skates. What I tell you, so you're roller skating down there, and it's not very big, you know. We're talking about a small basement area, and here are these big things hanging down from the ceiling. So you underneath, you had to, well, you didn't dare bump your head. Duck, 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 duck. We'd call to one another for fear that somebody was going to bump their head on those big containers. I don't know what you'd want to call them. So, but they were just, that was the winter was not a big worry. Once you got to school, well, you stayed inside all the time, and if you had roller skates, I don't remember if the little kids had roller skates. When I got my roller skates, I don't remember that either. But I remember, at least 5th grade on. that I had roller skates. I probably got them for Christmas one year. That was probably my bag from Santa Claus, you know.
So winter did not scare you guys, huh?
Hmm?
Winter didn't scare you?
Well,
You got to school just fine? Did you ever have any trouble getting to school? Did you have to go home early?
I don't remember that, and I don't remember them calling off school, but I'm sure they did, and that would have been done on the telephone, of course. The director or the teacher might have said, I can't make it to school, but when we lived on dirt road, and so when it was bad, like lots of snow or rainy and muddy, then Dad took me to school, to my brother and I, to school in a horse and buggy. We rode a buggy to school. And that was so humiliating. Oh, I just hated that. When we had to come in, and nobody else lived on dirt. So everybody else, their dads could bring them in the car or, whatever kind of vehicle they had. And they didn't have to come in horse and buggy. And other kids were not kind about that, Oh, here come the VanderHamms, you bet. Giddy up, horsey, you know. You know how kids are. They, tease and aggravate one another. Yeah. The other thing that I got teased about, and my mother would not relent, was when I was littler, my mom made me wear long brown cotton stockings. Not anklets, I'm talking about brown, and of course there were no slacks in those days. You could take slacks to school and put them on to go out to recess, but you didn't wear them in school. You wore a skirt or a dress or whatever, and you had, ordinarily, you wore anklets. But when the weather was cold and bad, my mother deemed that you needed to be warmer than that, and probably I did, right in the doggone buggy, but, I didn't see it that way. And so, yeah, and I got razzed unbelievable about my brown stockings. My ugly brown stockings.
You were the only one that had to wear ugly brown stockings?
I don't know. I don't remember if anybody else did or not. But I sure remember that I did, and I hated it.
Do you remember anything else you wore?
Well, my mom made my clothes. And it was at the time when the farmers bought feed or like that in colored sacks, and so my clothes often were made out of feed sacks, but so were everybody else's. And Mom's, now I gotta tell you, I'll give you an aside, because my husband grew up when he was getting out of grade school, going into high school, he worked at the elevator in the little town of Wall Lake. And he tells, or we did when he was living, told the most wonderful stories. I mean, he was the best storyteller about how these farm wives would come in, and he said, and they always wanted matching sacks so they could sew with them. And he said, and she always chose one from this pile, one from this pile, and then there was one down at the bottom of the pile that matched. And so you had to move all the sacks so she could have matching fabric. So that's always been but I'm sure my mother did the same thing, because that's just where you got fabric in those days. So we were like everybody else on the farm, in that you just made do with what you had, because your income was eggs and cream or milk until you sold cattle or you sold pigs or hogs, and then you got a nice big chunk. But otherwise. So another thing that I think about if as a experience at country school was you carried your lunch it seemed to me I always had a lunch bucket. But I don't know if that's true. Maybe sometimes, maybe earlier, it was some kind of pail. But it seems to me like I always had a lunch bucket that was designed to be a lunch pail, a lunch bucket. But you took your lunch bucket and it sat on the shelf out there where you hung your coats. And then at noon hour, you got your lunch bucket, you washed your hands out there, and then you came in and you brought your lunch bucket and you went back to your seat to eat your lunch. And one of the big entertainments during the lunch hour was if you had an orange, okay? And the trick was, what's the name printed on my orange? And there were, in those days, I don't know how many orange companies, but there might be in our group of students, there might be 3 or 4 different brands of oranges. And, printed on, and then you'd hang on and you didn't let anybody see. Well, once they guessed you, then you were out of the game. And it tried to be the one that hung on the last that nobody guessed what kind of orange that you had. Of course, having an orange was that was special. It wasn't like others. Having an apple wasn't like that. And I don't remember ever having bananas to take to lunch. But oranges and apples we often had for fruit to take. Another thing that was always a treat for the lunchroom was my dad was a smoker, and he didn't do without his cigarettes, And so of an evening after he was done with the chores and everything, if he were out of cigarettes, he might run into Craig, which would be about 4 miles, and go to the store there and buy cigarettes. And then he always brought home a treat for us to have in our lunches the next day. Well, we'd have been already gone to bed. So till you opened your lunch at school, you didn't know that you had a treat in your lunchbox. And this is kind of a personal aside, a current, one of the neatest candy bars that Dad would bring would be a cherry bing. Now, I don't know if you know those. Cherry bings are done by Palmer, I think it is. I'm not so sure about that. A candy company in Sioux City, Iowa, okay. And just recently, well, then I got to tell you that this will be relevant to Jean. Nancy McCullough is also from Sioux City. And so she went to Sioux City to school, and I taught in Sioux City and blah, blah, blah. And so the other day, she brought to me, they now have cherry bings in individual things, and they sell them at Fairway.
Oh.
Here in right here in River City, right? So, but oh man, if you had a candy bar in your lunch, it was like, whoa, that was really something. Yeah. I don't remember. I wonder if we lorded it over the other kids. I bet we did. Look what I got in my lunch today. You'd like to think you didn't do that, but I bet we did.
Did you ever have a hot lunch?
No.
No hot lunch?
No. Always carried. Yeah. See, now that you ask me that, Laura, I don't know that Ireton High School even had hot lunches when I got there.
You took your lunch to high
You know,
school.
yeah. I don't remember that they did. Maybe so, you know. But if they did, didn't make an impression on me, huh? So,
Now you said that when you went to the pre-kindergarten class in that spring, your dad took you, and he took you if the roads were muddy or snowy. Did you walk the other times?
yes. Well, we walked until I walked, and there was a neighbor gal, right? Oh, I was 1.5 miles, okay. So the half-mile was dirt, and then you got gravel. And about halfway up the half-mile, the Ravensways lived there. And they had 2 girls. And one was older than I and one younger. Neither one were in my grade, per se. So it was always somebody to walk with. And then, I can't think, Jean, how far into the school year it was, what grade I might have been. I want to say it was 5th or 6th, because it was wartime, and somehow our name came up that Dad was able to buy a bicycle. Now my bicycle was, it was a regular bike, except it had way thin little tires instead of tires like bikes have. And now they would be called a riding bike.
Okay.
You know, but in those days it was done to conserve.
Oh.
You know, to be
the rubber.
Yeah. And so then I rode my bike to school later on, those last years. Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
I think that's the first time I've heard anyone say that.
So I just, I did other wild things on my bike. I can get telling all kinds of stuff that isn't for school. I'm sorry about that. One of the other things that I did on my bike, that I had a pocket gopher run. Do you know, they're gophers, pocket gophers dig and they build mounds of dirt, okay? And so farmers, they just ruined the farmer's field. They'd dig and then they'd eat all of the corn that had been planted. And so my dad and my Uncle Arthur paid me to trap pocket gophers. And so I would go, and I went before school and I went after school. And I went, 4 or 5 miles maybe. And this field would have a hill. So you dig down, there's a special way that you dig down, and you come down to what are called the runs, where the gopher is running under the field. And when you come to the place that you've got the run, and then you put a trap right there. And then you cover that with a board, and you cover that with dirt, so he's in the dark. And then you've set your trap at that site, and you mark it so that you know. And then the next morning or the afternoon, depending on when you've set it, then you go back and check and see if you've got a gopher on your trap. And the trap is it's about this big and it snaps shut, and the gopher has humongous teeth. Oh, gopher teeth are just awful, and I couldn't do so. Okay, I caught a gopher. So now what am I going to do with that bugger? I ride home with holding me out there because I was scared to death of him. And so I gotta find Daddy. So Dad would kill him, and then what you do is you cut off the front feet, and those front feet get turned in at the county office. I don't know which one, but it's in Sioux County, there in Orange City. You turned them in, and you got paid 10 cents a pair. So every gopher that I trapped, I got 10 cents for. and you put the feed in a jar of salt, and then when you've got a big bunch, then Daddy'd take it into Orange City, and then he'd come back and give me the money that my 10 cents a gopher had earned. And now Dad didn't do this, but my Uncle Arthur was so pleased that I was getting the gophers out of his land. He said, for every 10 cents the county gives you, I'll give you 10.
Whoa.
So, man, the ones I got from my dad, Uncle Arthur's, I got 20 cents for. So that's how I know when I got my bike.
Okay.
You know, it was really, I loved riding it to school, but it became a really important thing for me to do.
You got it when you got your part-time job, right?
That's just about right. Yeah, isn't that crazy?
So you did that on your way to school.
Yeah.
When you got to school, what time was that? About
School was at 9.
at 9 o'clock?
Yeah, we went 9 to 4.
9 to 4?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What sort of expectations did your teacher have of you when you came to school or were at school?
Well, I think she expected you to behave yourself and study. And if you know, in a farm community, Laura, if you didn't behave yourself, it wasn't very long before everybody in the school and in the community knew it. You know, if somebody misbehaved, or if somebody got hurt, or somebody got sick at school, or whatever, Mom might know it before I even get home from school. You know, the telephone system in those days was a really effective communication tool, more than now, because one signal sent out might alert 4 or 5 different households, because they know your ring, you know, short, 2 shorts and a long. That was the VanderHamm ring. Yeah. And when all the people on our line heard that, they knew that something was happening at the VanderHamms. And it might be that they'd pick it up and it'd just be my grandma calling to visit. But on the other hand, it might
They
be
listened to
something.
that too.
Well, sure they did. Yeah, they did. Or at least listened long enough to know. Now, the other thing that was interesting in my life was that my dad's sister, Aunt Fern, ran the Ireton telephone office. And it was wonderful to go up there and plug in those people. And she'd say, now Doris, look, see that light? They want to talk to somebody. Plug me in. So I'd plug her in, and then she'd say, oh yes, we'll do that. We'll ring you. And then she'd say, now plug it over here, plug it over here. And then she'd ring whatever number that was. Yeah. Oh, that was phenomenal. Yeah. So, but it was, you know, it was effective. People knew, they kept track of one another, and there was a caring that somehow we've lost, even in the rural areas. They don't have that deep communication. My brother and sister-in-law live on the farm, and it's, you know, it's times change. What can you say? You know. Yeah.
You talk about your school being very modern and progressive. So what did your school look like from the outside? How would you describe it?
I'm trying to think. It seems to me that it was square. And it had little steps leading up and like a little landing, which was pretty big. In fact, you know, you could play there, and if it was raining, if you got close enough to the building, you could be out there. But it didn't have overhang over the whole thing. And then that was the main door in. And then there was a door out toward the back of that would, let's see, okay, my school is facing west, and you'd go out to the north, and then that puts you out on the playground. We didn't have playground equipment per se. I don't remember a swing or a teeter-totter or anything like that. If there was, I just don't remember it. I remember mostly we played games. We played games like Annie, Annie Over, and we played Red Rover, send whoever right over, and we played softball. We played a lot of softball, especially those years that we had so many of the older boys, you know. And sometimes they let the little kids play, and sometimes they didn't, just depending on I don't know what.
Do you remember how many kids were in the school? Your total population?
At the time that I was in 8th grade, I would guess there might have been 12 or 13.
Okay.
At the time when I was younger and the older kids were coming, I bet we were at 20,
Okay.
21. There was a group of older guys that I know one of them finished 8th grade and went on into Ireton to high school. The older guys. Now, so did the young fellow that he and I were grade mates.
Okay.
Yeah, Elmer went on and graduated high school and was a farmer. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I'll bet there were 20 some at the time when, you know, when the teacher was having so much difficulty with discipline. Yeah. But
Can you walk in your classroom and kind of see the walls and see what was you talked about the bookcase in the corner, glass doors?
on what?
Glass doors on that bookcase?
None.
Okay,
No,
just an open
no.
bookcase.
It was just open.
Okay.
I know that we had a picture of George Washington.
Okay.
The flag was up there off to the right, it seems to me. We said the Pledge of Allegiance every day. We had scripture every day. One of the teachers prayed. I don't remember that they all did.
Oh, okay.
But I think they all read scripture. Yeah. But and then you started the day, and she started with the little kids and worked with them, and then, you know, the older kids were to know what they were supposed to be doing, and it was, I think a teacher in those days, Laura, had to be very planned and very prepared and have things really ready, you know, ready and up front, ready to go, because there wasn't any lag time in between. You couldn't put them to work doing something and then have time to get things organized for the next class. There wasn't any of that time to do that. The teacher needed to be prepared and ready to go. Nowadays, in my reading, I enjoy very much reading Amish stories. And it's always fun to read about the young girls who teach Amish school, because as the author writes about their experience, they spend a lot of time preparing and getting ready for the next day, so that they're ready to go and have things, you know, set. And I think that way teaching probably was more demanding for a teacher in the time when I was in school than when I was teaching. Though I don't want to say that I didn't feel like I was cutting my bread and earning my salt, as they say. But they worked really hard. Yeah.
Were there certain things that you learned from your teachers that you took with you when you started teaching?
I don't know. I can't think of. I know, I know the experiences that I enjoyed when I was a student. One, I enjoyed being read to. And it was a highlight after you came in at noon. Then there was that downtime when everybody got settled and the teacher read from whatever book we were reading right then. And I can remember if it was a good book, and we'd all be listening so intently, and it would be time to quit. And we'd beg her to read a little more. Oh, won't you read? Come on, we need to know what happens next. And if she felt, she couldn't, well then, no, we'll have to wait till tomorrow. And so that love of reading and that wanting to share that with students, I thought, has always been something that I enjoyed. Another thing that I liked doing, I think I probably was in the minority, was that I liked to write. And so if I ran out of stuff to do, which I often did, then the teacher would I could write a letter. Do you want, how about if you write a letter to your grandma, or like that, she'd say. And anything keep me quiet and out of her hair. Be well behaved. But so there were those things I enjoyed. Otherwise, I don't really, just how it is, and we do, because we've been there. That's why we're in the arenas that we're in and we're in, is we cared about learning, and we enjoyed learning. And I just always felt like if I could help my 5th and 6th graders enjoy learning something, learn something new. And I'd always try to tell them when something came up that was new for me. I learned something brand new today. I didn't know that before. Trying to help them to know that it's an exciting thing to learn something new.
Very good.
And I think that was the part about going to school that I enjoyed the most. And when you're at home, and we didn't have very many books to read at home. I do remember my brother and I had scarlet fever when we were young. I was 8 and he was 4. And so we were quarantined. In those days you got quarantined out on the farm. It'd be like having the virus that's going around in China, huh? But in order to keep us quiet and happy, and because we had to be down, my mom read Black Beauty to us. And that is such a beautiful story. Such a beautiful story. And she'd get to one of the sad parts and we'd lay there and cry.
Oh.
And Mom would cry and she'd say, if you're going to cry, I'm not going to read any more of this. And, it was just, but that whole idea of love of learning and enjoying doing new things, I think that's part of a teacher's responsibility, and that's what makes school so fun and so exciting. So at least it was for me. That's where,
So during that time when you were sick, did you miss school?
Oh yeah.
Did you have to make up your work? How did that go?
Well, my dad was the only one that was allowed to go out of the house. And that he got to go to town to get groceries, and that was all. And my grandpa and grandma came to the house, and no, they came to the farm, and they left a box out at the end of the driveway. And then they came up to the house and to the windows and waved to us, you know, because that was just so worrisome. Yeah. But, and then of course, you know, doctor's not easy either. Our doctor was in Lamar's, which was 12 miles away. And I know he came once. Maybe he came more than that. But I know he came once. So. But
how long did you miss school for? Weeks, months?
It probably was 3 weeks. I think we were in quarantine for 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you had
we
to
were
make
sick
it up.
ahead of time, and then yeah. And I don't think anybody else got it. I don't remember Mom and Dad ever saying, you know, and I don't know where we got it. You know, I just know that that's what happened. So yeah.
So let's go back to talking about seeing the walls of your inside of your school. So you come into the door, one door at your school. You walk in.
The main door was a door, and that's where you'd go in the first in the morning, and then there was like a little what do you call that? Anteroom, a little welcome area, and it had a place where we hung our coats and a shelf, and you put your lunch pail on that shelf, and there was a sink and a bucket to throw the water in that was dirty, and there was I want to say it was a thermos. It was a container, a ceramic container that held the water. And I don't remember who went and got the water, whether the teacher did that or whether some of the kids did. I don't remember ever needing to do that myself.
Did you have a well? Do you remember if there was a well on the playground, on the school grounds?
I don't remember. I don't know where that water came from. I just know there was drinking water there. Yeah, you know, always, because people didn't have thermoses. You know, you didn't have a thermos of something to drink with your lunch. So, yeah, I don't remember about where the water came from, but I can see the big ceramic container. It was this big around, and you know, probably held what? 3-4 gallons, I'll bet.
We have one of those down at the Little Red Schoolhouse downtown. We had the Historical Society has one of those water ceramic.
Yeah, that's
crocks.
Yeah, crock. Thank you. That was the word that I really needed. Yeah. And then, there weren't doors that shut off that area though. That was open. Then you walked into the classroom area. And there weren't, you know, now, even when I was starting teaching, there was like a table where teacher gathered the children to work with them. But I don't remember that. I do remember the desks, for the little kids anyway, were like doubles. They were little. And I remember that the teacher would just take a chair and go and sit there to go over their books with them. Where with the older kids, we came up front. There must have been chairs up there, because I remember
a recitation bench.
Up there.
A recitation bench.
A bench. Maybe. I don't know. But there was a blackboard there. They had a blackboard. And the reason you went to the front was to use the blackboard. There was also, well, you're jogging a little bit. There was also like a roll. Can I say that? A roll of maps,
Oh,
you know? And
Several.
yeah. And so this one was the United States, and then if you went up here, it was something else, and so it was used mostly for social studies. It seems to me. Maybe there was science stuff on there too that I don't
Away from.
remember. But it seems to me like it was primarily for social studies.
Did you have electricity?
Did we have electricity? Must have. I don't remember any lamps.
Okay. Did you have windows on each side?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Windows all the way except for right there at what would be the front.
Mhm.
That was, and the front was. I'm trying to get my directions right. The road went by this way, and you went in, so the front was on what would be the east side of the building. Yeah. And I don't remember that there were any openings out to the south, but there was an opening out to the north that let you go out to the playground area.
Okay.
Yeah. There weren't any unusual furnitures or we didn't. One of the in the questionnaires was what was there available for music.
Oh yeah.
Like we didn't. There wasn't a radio, or there wasn't a piano, or there wasn't anything like that.
Or a phonograph either.
I don't remember that.
So the teacher just had to be able to come up with a tune. And
We had songbooks.
Oh.
We had songbooks. And the most ornery thing that the girls did, one of, was to choose to sing, "The ship is sailing down the bay. Goodbye, my lover, goodbye." And that's the way the song goes. The boys just hated that, singing that "Goodbye, my lover, goodbye." Oh, they didn't like it, and so 9 times out of 10, some girl would choose to sing that, not because we liked it so much, but the boys didn't like it, so that was reason enough to sing it. But and I don't know. Oh, I'm sure we didn't have a phonograph. Was the teacher and and she tried to do rhythm sticks, that. But I guess they must have been songs that we knew well enough or the teacher knew well enough that she could teach them to us. She had the music there, if she could read music, So, yeah, we had songbooks, and when we had music, which wasn't every day, they got passed out and then picked up again. Yeah, you didn't keep them. So, yeah. I don't remember whether we kept any books at our desk.
Oh.
I know we had, our own supplies there, but whether we ever had any books or not, I don't know. I don't remember, or whether they got. Oh, we must have, because you'd remember if you passed them out every time. Surely you wouldn't do that. That'd be too time consuming.
You would think so.
Yeah, I mean, pass out all the reading books every time, and pass out the math books every time, and like that. I can't imagine. Oh, rats. Do you want to do?
I sure will. Where is it?
I'll head out to the kitchen and hang a left. No. Hang a left right there. Answer.
Hello, this is Doris. Oops, gotta answer. Press
You gotta push the button.
Hello, this is Doris Mauer's residence. It is? Yes, she is. Just one moment.
Rats.
Emma Jean.
Oh, Oh, Emmy, I've got company. I'll call you back later. Okay, yeah, bye-bye. You know, that's one of those friends that, you know, call anytime, every time, all the time.
Okay. Bless their hearts.
All right. So you had music.
Pardon me?
You had music.
Mm-hmm.
What other subjects did you have in school?
Science. We heard about
Science.
science already.
And we had math,
Mm-hmm.
and we had reading,
Mm-hmm.
and we had spelling. And I would imagine that we had some kind of language arts, but I don't remember that. But I'm sure that we dealt with punctuation, capitalization, that kind of thing, probably tucked right into spelling, I would guess. But I really don't remember, Laura.
Mm-hmm.
And then social studies, and I liked social studies a lot.
Was that your favorite?
Probably that and reading,
Mhm.
yeah. So, and music, and we would. I think we had art once a week.
Oh, really?
I want to say we did,
Wow.
but mostly we drew pictures. We drew and colored and like that. I don't remember ever having paints or, you know, anything like that.
You had your crayons in tip-top shape, right?
Yeah. Oh, so
Mhm.
yeah.
So you went to country school during the war, correct?
Pardon me.
You went to country school during the war?
At
Or was
the end of the yes.
At the end of the war.
At the begin.
At the beginning.
The
The
end.
end of your days.
The end of my
End of
days
days.
at country school was the war. Now, let me tell you another war story. During the time of the war, it was a farm thing to collect milkweed pods in the fall. And we all, on our way to and from school, and we had days where we went out with bags and gathered milkweed pods. That filmy stuff in the milkweed pods was used for making parachutes.
Ah.
So it was a war effort thing that we did, and I was still at country school at that time.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, but the war went, you know, it was on later when I left country school.
Mhm.
But that's one of the war effort things that we did at country school
Mhm.
to do that. We also, isn't that funny how one thing triggers something else for you? We also sold savings stamps. And you could buy a savings bond stamp for 10 cents. And they sold them. Oh, see now, I wanted to say they sold them every week, but I can't imagine that they did. But maybe. Anyway, you had a little fold over sheet and you stuck your savings bond stamp in that, and then when you got it full, you had a savings bond.
Mhm.
Okay.
Weren't they worth a quarter, $25? Seems to me that when you got done, you had saved $25.
Mhm.
So that'd be... No,
How
that
many
can't be-
stamps
that
for
can't
$25 should be?
Yeah, that'd be 250. That's there wouldn't be that many.
Wouldn't be that many.
It doesn't matter. So, anyway, you had that folder and you kept it, and the teacher kept those. The teacher kept the folders.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you wouldn't have every kid running around with that in their desk, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so, she was responsible, seems to me, for having the stamps for us to buy. But I remember when you know, Dad or Mom would say, "Now here's your dime for your stamp today." And boy, you better not lose it, you know.
Mm.
That wasn't said, but you knew it.
You knew.
You knew it, yeah. And so that's the two things that I've just now thought of about that were part of the war effort. Yeah. So.
Can you think of any funny things that happened?
Oh. No, I really don't.
Scary things? Traumatic things?
No. No. Everything just kind of rolled along, and probably the most, if you had anything scary, it was walking home from school, and if somebody came along with a car and drove real slow, and you know, you were so glad that there were a bunch of you there, because my brother would have been walking with us, and Arlene and her sister, and that kind of thing would be scary. We were always alert about people being around that shouldn't be. Another thing that we were always alert about was gypsies, because gypsies traveled the farm area, and sometimes they'd come to the door and beg. Sometimes they just stole chickens. Sometimes they went to the chicken house and gathered all the eggs. I mean, they were thieves, you know, and that was scary, but you let them do that, and you stayed hidden in the house rather than confront them, you know. But yeah, I don't. My growing up on the farm was really a neat experience, but when, you know, it was different than now. Nowadays, we worry about activities for our kids to be involved in. When, in my day, you got home from school, what's the first thing you do? You change your clothes, because you got good clothes on. And you're not going to go and do chores on the farm with those clothes on. So you go in, change your clothes. Mom probably had a snack ready, you know, and most often it would be like peanut butter jelly sandwich, or, you know, something like that. Not cake and cookies like we do nowadays with kids, you know. And then, so you get changed, then you've got chores to do. Whether it's going out to the chicken house and gathering the eggs and bringing the eggs in and washing them up and getting them ready to be sold on Saturday, or is it going out and getting hay down from the hay field or hay pile so that you can throw it in for the cattle. And the worst was if you had to tend the hogs. That would, I really hated that. I was a little bit afraid of them. David never was, but I was. And then if the evening goes on, and pretty soon the cows come in and it's time to milk. And then, so your whole time when you get home from school is assigned to working kinds of activities. You know, where today, in our society, we are looking for things for kids to do, to keep them occupied constructively, you know. And so then you'd help with that, and maybe I'd get done enough that I could go in and help Mom with supper. Another time would be if she were busy in the garden, and then she'd say, now you fix this and this and this for supper, and it has to be ready by the time your dad comes in from the field. Oh, okay. You know, and so when you got home from school, you had tasks to do. Now, I was lucky that in the morning I did not have to milk cows. I'll tell you, this isn't a school funny, but I'll tell you about this. When I was growing up, we had cows, and we milked cows, and we sold cream, and we drank the milk, and we fed the milk to the pigs, okay, the separated milk. And the cream was there for selling. Okay, so we did that. And pretty soon it got so that David and I were doing the milking, and Dad didn't have to milk anymore. So, okay, that was pretty interesting. Then came time and I went off to college. And my dad bought a milking machine. And so then my brother could do the milking because he had the milking machine. All right. So then 4 years later, my brother went off to college and my dad sold the cows.
He didn't like milking, did he?
That was the end of that.
So you ran the separator too?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Gosh. Yeah. Some of those farm chores were, not fun. But that was subsistence farming. That was the way it went. You raised what you could live on. And my dad had 160 acres, and that was a nice sized farm when I was growing up. It was considered, very, very adequate. And nowadays you've got to have 600 acres, Nobody does 160 unless they're doing some kind of specialized crop, So I was going to say like marijuana, but I better not say that. Let my bias show, because I think that's such a bad thing that we've had happen. But oh well.
So do you have a best or worst memory of country school?
No, I really don't. I now that I look back and looking at your papers, my heart was feeling for that young teacher, the kids were so mean to her. Now I'll tell you, as a little kid, I was a little kid then. I was scared. I was afraid of those big boys, and what they were doing, and I bet I was tickled to death that her boyfriend came and sat there.
You were.
But
I'm wondering, he must have been a farmer too. That when that
he could be free to come.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. But my heart goes out to her. One of the other things that I remember that would be fun to think about for a little bit is that we always put on a Christmas program.
Oh.
And it was a big thing. And now there, we did learn to sing. We learned songs that we sang, and we had little playlets, and every kid had a little piece to say. And I remember that somehow, I suppose the school director came and helped the teacher. We had a wire strung across, maybe a fourth of the way down. Maybe not that far, because all this would be full of people. And then, but the activity then with the kids went on behind that curtain. And then you came out from behind the curtain to do your play, or the curtain opened. I don't know how. Now that I think about that, she must have cut a sheet, because it opened, and then we would all be standing there and we'd sing. And then the curtain would close, and I don't know if all the parents chipped in to help bring stuff, but we always had then treats afterwards. It was a big thing. The Christmas program was a big thing, and I remember that Grandpa and Grandma came, and I'm sure other kids' grandpas and grandmas came too. Family came, because doing that program was a big thing. That, and then we had a school picnic at the end of the school year, and that was in that I remember the dads getting involved with I don't remember whether we girls got to play or not, or whether just the boys did. But there was a big ball game, and the dads played ball in that ball game. So
it always amazes me that during planning season, that those dads would have to take the time to come to school.
yeah,
That's special.
Yeah, they would just, there was a commitment to education in my day that I did not sense when I was in the classroom as a teacher. I didn't feel that family intensity about I want my child to do well, and the teacher's going to see to it that that happens if I'm back here supporting, seeing to it that it does, seeing that I'm doing my share. Too often when I was in the classroom, which has been now X many years ago, when parents wanted their kids to do well, and then it better be the teacher that sees to it. Because mom and dad aren't going to take a responsibility to be supporting the teacher and seeing to it that their kid does well. And that, I think that's been a real breakdown in our educational system. And from what my friends that are teaching now, I think it's even more profound and more difficult now than it was when I was teaching 20 years ago. Yeah, but I mean, when you were going to country school, and as I said, that word went out in a hurry, if you didn't behave and you were, the word got there, got home before you got there, and you were in deep doo. Big trouble, And nowadays, too often it was some other child's fault, or it was the teacher's fault, or the principal didn't do anything. The fault always lays somewhere else. So that's discouraging. Discouraging. But I loved going to school, and I loved it just as much when I was teaching it as I did when I went. It's just there's something wonderful about learning, and so then that's why it's so fun to be involved now. I'm getting ready to start I teach the Bible class at my church for women's Bible study group, and we took off the winter quarter. Now, of all, last year was so awful in the winter, so we thought we'll take off the winter quarter. Well, probably most Thursdays we could have been studying. So, but now we start again, the first Thursday in March. So I'm studying. I got it out here. So, yeah.
So you went to town school then, and then you set off to be a teacher. Where did you do your training at, your teaching education?
Where? Here.
Oh, at UNI?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Iowa State Teachers College.
Yeah. 2 year.
2 years?
Went out and yeah, I have a saga of colleges. I came here for 2 years. Now I gotta tell you, I'll brag to you girls a little bit. I had a scholarship to come to Iowa State Teachers College, and it came from my county.
Oh.
And it was $25 a term. $25. And it was, wow, look at this. How that, that was going to be something. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't relate to that one.
Yeah, no, isn't it something? Yeah.
Right.
$25. So I was here, and I did the 2 year program was very rigid and identified. I did my student teaching at Hudson, and then I went out and I taught at Algona for 3 years. Okay. And while I was there, I started work on my BA, and I got my BA from Morningside College in Sioux City. And by then I'd met Virgil, and we were married while I was teaching in Sioux City, and I got my MA at, my BA at Morningside. Mm-hmm. And then we moved from Sioux City to Dubuque. Mm. And I was teaching school in Dubuque, and all this time I'm teaching 4th grade, okay? I'm teaching 4th grade in Dubuque, and they had a wonderful program at Clark College. They had a funded program for the teaching of reading, and it was split up. They had funding for 25 students. 5 were Catholic nuns that lived in Dubuque. 5 were Catholic nuns that lived outside of Dubuque, taught other places. Mm. 5 were Iowans living in Dubuque. That was my category. Mm. Another 5 were Iowans that lived away from Dubuque. And then, I'm up to 25 now, and the last 5 were from outside Iowa. So that's where the 25 came from. Okay. And so we started, it was a wonderful program. We started in August and finished the next August, and I had my master's degree in the teaching of reading. Wow. We got paid $4,000. Wow. Yes, $4,000. They paid for all our books, and they paid for our tuition at Clark. What a gift was that, huh? You know, you just can't hardly, nowadays, you can't hardly imagine what a wonderful thing that was. So, and then we were and I was going, I had my years off, sabbatical from the school system in Dubuque, and they took me right back in, and so there was no issue about work or anything. Mm-hmm. So then we moved and we came here in 1968. Okay. And I started at Southdale School in 5th and 6th grade. 6th grade just it was then. And then graduated 5th and 6th. Mm-hmm. I spent 1 year as reading consultant, which is like a year in, if not hell, purgatory. It was just terrible, girls. Oh, it was so frustrating. Because you knew what needed to be done. You were going out to, teachers would have you, you know, if they had students that were having difficulty with their reading. Mm-hmm. So what are you going to do? Well, so you tell them, and you take the books, and you, all of that, outline the program. But they don't have time. Mm-hmm. They don't have time to mess with all these things that Doris thinks would be a really fun thing for Tim or Jim or Mary to know. And they would have been, but there wasn't a staff person there to do it, and teacher didn't have slack time to do that. It was awful. It was so frustrating. You saw these kids that needed stuff, and you couldn't do anything about it. Wow. And so they had promised, Doris, do it 1 year. If you don't like it, you can go back to the classroom. Boy, I went back so fast you couldn't see me for dust. Yeah. So, yeah. Gosh. So.
Well, Doris, what are some important takeaways you want people to remember about country school?
Country schools provided an element of learning and joy of learning in a safe environment. And with the other thing is that the support of the community, of the family, was a vital piece for success. I wish we could instill that in parents today. But too many of them didn't grow up with that support either. Mm-hmm. And so they don't know, you know, if you haven't. Now, you've been talking. I'm going to check my notes and see if I told you everything that I wanted you to know. That I thought, oh, they can't live if they don't know this piece.
Do you have questions, Jean?
No, you've really done a nice job of, between Doris just coming up with the good
Oh gosh.
good topics and you asking the questions.
Yeah, we talked about the horse and buggy. Talked about the dang brown socks.
Mm-hmm.
Tell you another mean thing that we used to do. The girls that I walked back and forth to school with were Dutch, Hollander Dutch, and we used to tease the boys that walked with us. They would take a Dutch word, and then we would tease them with that Dutch word that we knew the meaning, but they didn't. You know, like we pretend we were calling them a bad name. Like pick out some word that they said was a word, and it didn't. I don't know if they were ever really a word or not, but we just teased the heck out of those boys with that. Oh, isn't that crazy? How mean we were. Okay. Well, I think you did a really good job of. I don't see anything else that I for sure wanted to tell you.
Well, you're a
Talked about
wonderful
roller
narrator, so.
So.
It's quite a story to be told, isn't it, Doris?
Isn't it though? And if you know, the thing is that every teacher, everybody that's gone to a country school would have a little bit different slant, because their school would have its own integrity. You know, and that's what makes your study so fun, I would think.
Yeah.
You know, your study must be really, really interesting. But trying to pull it all together will be just. Or don't you ever intend to do that?
Well, so what we've done with all of our interviews is that we've created this digital repository to not only put them in a safe place for us, but also to give access to the public as well. And so it's called the Rural School Digital Story Map. And what we do is we take all of our interviews, we upload them onto the website, and then we locate the rural school in which they attended or taught at. So on one hand, you can locate the school on the map, pinpoint it, it'll literally drive you to it. And the other hand, it connects you to the person in which that interview is connected to. So you will actually be uploaded and your school will be pinpointed.
But Laura, you're not finding very many of the schools in existence now.
No.
The schools aren't there, but there's still stories.
Yes, but I mean, to locate Reading Township number 8, that was torn down, and the farmer who donated that land has since reclaimed it, and it's farmland now. There isn't anything there that would let anybody know that it was once a schoolhouse corner.
But you'll be able to see this map of Iowa, and you said Sioux County, and you'll be able to go to Sioux County and click on, and there will be your interview.
So, but I mean,
the buildings are gone.
Yeah.
But what we can do is that we can use maps and plat maps, and then we use the Department of Transportation. They have a wonderful resource where they have old aerial shots, like from the 1930s, 40s, and on, that we can actually use our records and these maps online to locate exactly where the school is.
Oh, cool. That would be nice.
Yeah, so whatever information you give us, that helps
to
locate.
You bet. Oh.
People have been getting online, maybe I told you this at the meeting, at the businesswomen meeting, but to find, they've been doing genealogy work, and there was one fellow who you need documentation to get a Social Security, and he could get, your country school record is a government record.
My gosh.
And he could use that.
Yeah. Oh. Well, I got thinking about that. Superintendent Ty used to come and visit, occasionally, and I don't think that the teacher ever knew when he was going to be coming in, But I do remember that that was like, oh man, this guy's coming and it's somebody important because he had on a suit.
I remember one teacher I interviewed said she'd keep the screen door locked so he couldn't walk in on her in surprise.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well,
because they didn't always know when he or she was coming.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that, they didn't know. But I remember when he came with the 8th grade tests. That was, man.
But you passed, right?
Flying colors. Did you have a graduation then?
Well,
did you like a whole county 8th grade graduation?
I think that we went into Ireton.
Okay.
And I'll bet they had their 8th graders graduate, and that we got to too.
Okay.
I just don't remember so much about that. My grandpa and grandma lived across the street from the school, and it seems to me like we went over there to grandpa and grandma's afterwards. I don't know. We were. I immediately sensed the division between the town kids and the country kids. You just were. You just were.
By the time you graduated, had that sort of melted or not really?
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah. So we only had. We only had 14 of us that lasted, So.
You had to be friends, didn't you?
So. Yeah. There wasn't the sense of value for education for high school, or especially after high school. My dad, well, I guess I have to back up and say that when the community found out that I was going to go to college, my dad was visited by some men in the community out in the farm. The farmer men came and told my dad that was foolish. He was wasting his money, that I could get a perfectly good job taking care of so-and-so. She was having a new baby. I didn't need to go away to school. And that was just a bunch of foolishness. Well, now, if they didn't know or if they didn't give a darn, I don't know. But my mom had been to college. My mom did a 6-week, I don't know how long. She did a summer course up here at the college to get her teaching certificate. And then she taught country school. She was teaching country school when she and Dad got married. And that was a big secret thing, but anyway. So I know that they leaned on my dad really bad about letting me go to school. And I'm sure that some of their daughters were leaning on them. Well, if Doris can go, why can't I go? I'm sure that had to be. Why else would they care? But oh yeah. So there was a real stigma about women getting an education. So.
My high school guidance counselor told me I was not to go to college. I have a brother a year younger, and that my dad could not afford to send us both to school. So I was supposed to take shorthand and typing and be a secretary. I had to fight him. Every spring you had to go in to register for classes, and I had to fight him every year.
Isn't that something? Yeah. Yeah, they had a mindset, and that was just it, didn't they? Yeah. Yeah. And look what we did in spite of it. Boy, we did show them, didn't we?
We did.
I ended up. Well, you know how it is when you're out teaching. You've got all these courses to take and things you want to do, And I ended up with my master's plus 45. 45 hours beyond my master's degree when I finally retired. Yeah.
Teaching college level classes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did that. Yeah.
Wow.
So I love teaching the teacher courses because you could when you can talk your trade, you know, and other people are experiencing the same thing, have experienced it. You just have that
Right.
click with one another that, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. So, did you really? Oh, I never had that. You know, it just, it's just fun time, Laura.
Yeah.
Really fun time.
Well, is there anything else you wanted to talk about that
So,
we didn't get to?
I didn't finish my list.
Oh.
I didn't finish.
Better let her finish this.
I think I have. I think I've done everything, honey. Probably more than enough. Everything you wanted to know plus.
I feel like we could sit and talk for hours here.
Yeah,
About
and that's
your-
the truth.
Your 9 years, 8 years.
So,
7 years she skipped for
Yeah.
sure.
yeah.
Wow. No big deal.
Yeah, I don't see anything that I wrote down that I haven't done.
Did you send the notes to Doris Bigelow?
I could not do that.
Oh, Mary would
I
let you.
didn't. No, I didn't have her email at the time.
Oh, she probably didn't do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought at the time that she had to just pull it all up fresh.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I was so impressed with.
Doris,
Yeah.
she would bring up.
Oh my gosh.
This one question is, were there any special events at your school that involved the larger community and the holidays? And I gotta tell you, you don't have Christmas capitalized on that sentence, in that phase
Oh.
program, and elections. I don't remember doing anything with the elections.
The middle school, and it's not a section, but you have your county and then in your township. Your townships each had 9 schools. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So number 5's in the middle, and that was also called center school many times. And that was the election school. And that's where the election box, that's where the voting took place. And sometimes they wouldn't have school like the afternoon of an election day in that school, because that's where they voted, in the center school. The Bennington, the one downtown on First Street, that was the center school. And there's a voting box, ballot box there.
Is it? My gosh. No, I just, I don't remember anything.
And you said yours
about
was
that.
number 9, so you were down in the county of your town,
Yeah,
the
we
corner
were
of your
8.
township
Yeah,
then.
yeah. Then I wanted to know about involvement, and I couldn't do anything but go on into the high school with that. And I was, as I am now, I was overweight kid in school. So there wasn't any question of playing basketball or anything like that. I mean, it just wouldn't. But I did belong to GAA, the Girls Athletic Association, and that was just intramural stuff, kind of, things that you did just in your own school. And that was kind of fun. But mostly, you'd never guessed, I was involved with the debate and the speech things in my school.
Yeah.
And I was in speech competition, and I was on the debate team. Then when I came here, to work on my 2-year, I was on the debate team here.
Oh, okay.
But it didn't work. I stayed with it and through the first 2 quarters. Remember, we were on the quarter system then. But there were too many things to study, to prepare for debate. And then we'd go away on a weekend for a debate tournament, and I'd come back, and it just just didn't flow. The kids that were 4-year students, debate was a better fit for them than for somebody who was a 2-year person. No, just the programming was just too different. So, but in school I was in the class play. What else can I say? Back to one of the things we had to talk about. Kiddo, I'm at the last page and I haven't found anything yet that you can't live without knowing. There you are.
Well, Doris, thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so glad you came. It's nice to talk to you, and it's fun to talk about and think about those days. And those were good years in my life.
We didn't just get a snapshot of country school. We got a snapshot of farm life too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Two go hand in hand. So.
Yeah. They definitely did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It did for all. Yeah.
Wow.
So, who was I visiting with the other day, talking about early movies and when you had seen early movies. And I can remember that in the summer we would go to Ireton and Mom would take eggs and cream and get taken care of them, and she'd grocery, and then the town showed a movie. You know how they do it, here.
Under the moon.
Okay.
Movies under the
moon. So it was between the two stores. There was a vacant lot, kind of. It wasn't a whole big lot, but a store could have built there. And then I don't know what they did down at the end to show against, but then they had the projector up here, and the town gave us popcorn.
Whoa! Free movies and popcorn.
Let me
too.
tell you, yeah, But now that's one of the first memories I've got about seeing movies, seeing a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Do you remember what some of them were?
No, I don't.